So I was reading about the ITC Hotels demerger, and it seems like a pretty big deal, right?
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming. I mean, investors have wanted this for years.
Yeah, I saw something about how the hotels were sort of a drag on ITC's overall returns. Can you explain that a bit more?
But basically, the hotels business used up a lot of ITC's capital, about 20% actually, but only contributed like 3 to 4% of their operating profits, which is not great. It's like having a really expensive car that you rarely drive.
That makes sense. So what exactly is a demerger anyway?
Right. So a demerger is basically when a company splits into separate entities. And in this case, ITC is spinning off its hotel business into a completely independent company called ITC Hotels.
Okay, so it's like taking one big company and separating one part to stand on its own.
Exactly. It's like separating the ingredients of a recipe so they can be used for different dishes.
Got it. And I saw that ITC Hotels is actually quite large already, like second largest in India.
That's correct. They have over 13,000 rooms in about 140 properties and are planning to grow to 18,000 rooms by 2030. They're pretty substantial.
Wow, that's massive. So why do this now after all this time?
Well, it seems that ITC Hotels has matured and is ready to grow on its own. And this allows ITC to focus on its more profitable areas like tobacco and FMCG without being held back by the capital needs of the hotels business. It's like setting a bird free to fly and reach its own potential, right?
So that makes a lot of sense. So what does this mean for shareholders? How does this work?
Right. So shareholders of ITC will receive one share of the new ITC hotels for every 10 shares they own in the parent company ITC.
So it's like a bonus for holding ITC's stock?
Exactly. The record date is January 6th, which means you had to own ITC shares by January 3rd to get this new ITC hotels stock.
Okay, so if I had 10 shares, I'd get one share of ITC Hotels. What happens to the ownership after this?
ITC will retain a 40% stake in ITC hotels, and the remaining 60% will be held by existing ITC shareholders. So the people who owned a piece of ITC now get a piece of ITC hotels too.
The shareholders still have control, just in a separate entity.
Yes, but it also means ITC hotels can now raise funds independently, which is quite a big deal for its expansion plans.
Hmm. Now, I'm wondering, what about the listing? How will ITC Hotels actually start trading?
Well, they'll have a kind of pre-open market session, like a rehearsal, to determine the starting price, and then it'll be listed officially, and that's where the real trading starts.
That's interesting, kind of like a test run. And what about the price? Do they have any idea how much the stock will be worth?
Analysts estimate it could be between 200 and 300 rupees per share, but the market will ultimately decide the price once it starts trading. So, it's a bit of a guess right now.
That sounds about right. Now, is there anything else that we should know about this split?
Well, it's also worth noting that ITC Hotels has been focused on this asset-right model where they manage hotels instead of owning them directly, and that's helped them grow their portfolio while keeping costs down, like leasing instead of buying.
That's smart. It reduces the need for capital expenditure. And it seems that they're very keen on sustainability too.
Yeah, their responsible luxury approach aligns well with ESG principles, making the company more appealing to environmentally conscious investors, which is quite important these days.
Okay, that's a good point, especially considering how much ITC relies on its tobacco business. So this demerger is kind of like a reset button for them.
Absolutely. And the hospitality sector in India is actually expected to grow. So they are quite well positioned to capitalize on that.
So in short, this demerger allows ITC hotels to be more independent, raise funds and grow more rapidly, while also making ITC more focused.
Exactly. It's like giving two kids their own space to grow and explore different paths.
And will this change things for ITC as a company? Will they branch out or spin off other divisions maybe?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? With the hotels business out, ITC could double down on existing divisions or explore entirely new ventures. Only time will tell.
This is a lot to take in. So the main takeaway is that ITC Hotels is becoming a separate listed company and existing shareholders are getting a piece of that pie.
Yes, that's pretty much the gist of it. It's a significant move for ITC, and it'll be interesting to see how both companies perform going forward.
Okay, so it's a bit like watching a caterpillar turn into a butterfly. and seeing what they will do once they have their own wings.
Well said. Exactly. It's a big transformation and should be interesting to watch unfold. I guess we will see.
So, with all of that in mind, this is definitely something to keep an eye on and for investors to maybe take note of.
Absolutely. It's a big move that could impact the market significantly. And yeah, it definitely warrants further observation.
Well, this has been super informative, and thanks for breaking it down.
No problem. It's a complex topic, but hopefully that made things a bit clearer. I mean, it's always interesting to see how these corporate changes play out, right?
Definitely. So, are you thinking about investing in ITC hotels after all of this?
Well, I'm going to wait and see how the market reacts to the listing. It's always good to be a bit cautious and gather more information first.
That's a smart move. It's like waiting for the first reviews before you go see a new movie.
Exactly. And it'll be interesting to see if the estimates are right about the price point. Maybe we can revisit this topic next month.
Sounds good. So, stay tuned for more updates, I guess.